In this video, we will learn about the fundamental duties of India, of the Constitution of India, that are in the Part 4A of the Constitution, or Article 51A of the Constitution. So, the fundamental duties were not there not a part of the Constitution when it was made, but it was later added. So, we can say that the rights and duties of the citizens are correlative and inseparable. That is, if we get fundamental rights, we should perform our fundamental duties also as citizens. So the original constitution contained only the fundamental rights and not the fundamental duties. So the constitution makers or the framers of the constitution did not feel that it was necessary to incorporate the fundamental duties of citizens in the constitution. However, they incorporated the duties of the state in the constitution in the form of directive principles of state policy. But later in 1976, the fundamental duties of citizens were added in the constitution. And in 2002, one more fundamental duty was added. And the fundamental duties in Indian constitution are inspired by the constitution of erstwhile USSR. So you have to remember this, guys. It is very important that the fundamental duties are inspired by the constitution of erstwhile USSR, because the constitution of erstwhile USSR declared that the citizens' exercise of their rights and freedom was inseparable from the performance of their duties and obligations. So it has been inspired by the constitution of erstwhile USSR. Okay, so now we'll see that in 1976, the Congress Party set up the Sardar Swaran Singh Committee to make recommendations about the fundamental duties. So, because the need and necessity of which was felt during the operation of internal emergency. The committee recommended the inclusion of a separate chapter on fundamental duties in the Constitution. It stressed that the citizens should become conscious that in addition to the enjoyment of rights, they also have certain duties to perform as well. So, on the recommendation of the Swaran Singh Committee, the 42nd Constitutional, the Congress government at center accepted these recommendations and enacted the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1976. This amendment added a new part, namely Part 4A, to the Constitution, and this new part consists of only one article, that is Article 51A, which for the first time specified a code of 10 fundamental duties of the citizens. Okay, so through the Swaran Singh Committee suggested the Swaran Singh Committee suggested 8 fundamental duties earlier, but in the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, it included 10 fundamental duties. So there is no law imposing such penalty or punishment shall be called in question in any court on the ground of infringement of any fundamental rights or on the ground of repugnancy to any other provision of the Constitution. So, as we can see here, that the Parliament may also provide for the imposition of such penalty or punishment as may be considered appropriate for any non-compliance. And these were the recommendations of the committee, Swaran Singh Committee, which were not accepted by the Congress Party. The first one was that the Parliament may provide for the imposition of such penalty or punishment as may be considered appropriate for any non-compliance with or refusal to observe any of these duties. So these fundamental duties have a moral obligation and they are not enforceable in any court of law. So no law imposing such penalty or punishment shall be called in question in any court on ground of infringement of any fundamental right or on the ground of repugnancy to any other provision of the Constitution. And duty to pay taxes should also be a fundamental duty of the citizens. These three recommendations were not accepted. So now we will see the list of fundamental duties. So it is in the part 4A, Article 51A. So as we can see here, it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to abide by the constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, the national flag and national anthem. Every Indian has to respect its the constitution, the national flag, all the institutions of government of India or any other institutions, and national flag and the national anthem, and to cherish and follow the noble ideas which inspired our national struggle for freedom, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India, to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so, to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, and regional or sectional diversities, to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women, to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture, to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. This is also our one of our fundamental duties, to protect the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife. Nowadays, it is not very strictly followed, but and many people don't remember this fundamental duty, or many people don't give importance to this fundamental duty, but it is also a fundamental duty to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures, which is being neglected due to our fast economic development, to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform, to safeguard public property and to abjure violence, to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. So these are all the fundamental duties, the 11 fundamental duties, which has been earlier only 10 fundamental duties had been added, and 11th fundamental duty was added in 2002, that is to provide opportunity for education to child or ward between the age of 6 and 14 years. It is not listed here. There in this list there are only 10 fundamental duties in this list, but the 11th one is to provide opportunities for education to his child or ward between the age of 6 and 14 years. This duty was added by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act 2002. So like the directive principles, the fundamental duties are also non-justiciable, and they are only moral duties. They have moral obligations and civic duties, and they refer to such values which have been a part of Indian tradition, mythology, religions, and practices. They essentially contain just a codification of tasks integral to the Indian way of life. So these are not enforceable in any court of law. That is, they are non-justiciable. The constitution does not provide for their direct enforcement by courts. Moreover, there is not legal sanction against their violation. However, the parliament is free to enforce them by suitable legislation, and the fundamental duties are confined to only citizens, whereas the fundamental rights are available to both citizens as well as foreigners. But in case of fundamental duties, only the citizens have to practice it, and they do not extend to foreigners. So this is all about fundamental duties. So this is the significance of fundamental duties is that they serve as a reminder to the citizens that while enjoying their rights, they should also be conscious of duties they owe to their country, their society, and to their fellow citizens. So they serve as a warning against the anti-national and anti-social activities like burning the national flag, destroying public property, and so on. They serve as a source of inspiration for the citizens and promote a sense of discipline and commitment among them. They create a feeling that citizens are not mere spectators but active participants in the realization of national goals. They help the courts in determining the constitutional validity of a law. And so one of the major significance of fundamental duties is that they help the courts in examining and determining the constitutional validity of law. For example, in 1992, the Supreme Court ruled that in determining the constitutionality of any law, if a court finds that the law is in question seeks to give effect to fundamental duty, it may consider such law to be reasonable in relation to Article 14 or Article 19, and thus save such law from unconstitutionality. They are enforceable by law. Hence, the Parliament can provide for the imposition of appropriate penalty or punishment for failure to fulfill them. They are not non-justiciable, but that is not enforceable in court, but they are enforceable by law. So this is all about the fundamental duties. And there was also a Verma committee which was established in 1999 on fundamental duties of citizens. It identified the existence of legal provisions for the implementation of some of the fundamental duties. That is the Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act, that is prevents the disrespect to the Constitution of India, the national flag and the national anthem, the various criminal laws in force, that is which provide for the punishment for encouraging enmity between different sections of people on grounds of language, race, place of birth, religion, and so on, because it is in the list of fundamental duties to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India. And the third one is that the Protection of Civil Rights Act provides for the punishment for offences related to caste and religion. The Indian Penal Code declares that the imputations and assertions prejudicial to national integration as punishable offence. The Unlawful Activities Act of 1967 provides for the declaration of communal organization as an unlawful association. The Representation of People Act provides for disqualification of members of the parliament or state legislature. Wildlife Protection Act 1972 prohibits trade in rare and endangered species. The Forest Conservation Act of 1980 checks indiscriminate deforestation and diversion of forest land for non-forest purposes. So these were the observations of Verma Committee on fundamental duties of the citizens, and it identified the existence of legal provisions for the implementation of some of the fundamental duties. So if these fundamental duties are violated, then there are legal provisions for people which can be used by the government or the parliament to punish them. So these are the provisions which I read earlier. And again, I will say that there are only 11 fundamental duties. The 10 are listed here. As you can see here, you can read from here and you can learn it. Repeated revision will make you more fluent and make you remember more of these fundamental duties. And the 11th one is to provide, I will again tell you, to provide opportunities for education to his child or ward between the age of 6 and 14 years. This duty was added by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act 2002, and the other duties were added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. They serve as a reminder to the citizens that while enjoying their rights, they should also be conscious of duties they owe to their country, their society, and to their fellow citizens. And they were inspired from the earliest erstwhile USSR. So this is all about fundamental duties which are which are listed in part 4a, article 51a of the constitution. We will look at the further chapters in the next video.